So this meeting has seen the launch of the hotly anticipated DSM-5 guidelines. We went to the press briefing earlier to take a look.
DSM's long been a critical guidebook for clinicians. But during the development of this next edition, it became clear just how significant a role the manual now plays, a role in society as well as medicine. The question is why? It certainly helps that the book is written in plain English instead of technical jargon, but that doesn't quite explain its prominence. The real reason, I think, is that there's hardly a family or community anywhere that has not been touched in some way by a mental health issue. This manual matters to people's lives.
Publication of this manual marks the first time in nearly 2 decades that the classification and criteria of mental disorders have been revised. The changes reflect what we have learned from research studies, scientific advances, and clinical experience since DSM-4 came out in 1994. Today's release represents a culmination of work by a large number of people. It's also the result of robust professional debate and keen public discussion. All of this, the debate and the discussion, have only served to strengthen the final product, which we expect will prove to be very useful. We believe that it will be of great utility to clinicians, and importantly, it will greatly benefit the patients.
Basically, as we see it, it is always a very exciting event to have a new DSM. We paid a lot of attention to provide this common language, which is important in order to understand and communicate about mental disorders. Because we must remember that the manual is first and foremost a guidebook for clinicians, even though, of course, it is used by researchers, consumers, and families and insurers. We know that it influences the care of millions of individuals of all ages in terms of them receiving appropriate care for their mental health problems. Because of this far-reaching set of effects, we spent considerable energy and had considerable expertise, fortunately for us, to better characterize and more precisely define our symptoms in terms of their duration, level of severity, and even discussion and definition of such symptom clusters. We think that this better characterizes individuals who may be seeking treatment for their mental health problems.
You've heard, particularly in recent weeks, that some people aren't satisfied with the DSM-5 in terms of the magnitude of the changes that were made. And that they don't reflect etiology, neurobiology, have laboratory tests, and so forth. We understand this, and nothing could be preferable to us than to be able to incorporate new scientific knowledge into DSM-5 or any sort of future iterations of it. But we can't create the knowledge. DSM reflects the state of our scientific knowledge. And it is to try and provide a way of translating the latest scientific knowledge into clinical practice for the purposes of recognizing signs and symptoms and establishing diagnosis with can guide treatment.
But it's important to recognize that DSM is not a practice guideline. It is to focus on the diagnosis, but it's an entirely separate process that we have at the APA to develop recommendations for treatment and practice guidelines. So I think with that, we look forward to your evaluation of whether or not you think in fact, that all of the concerns that have been expressed in the press are actually likely to come to pass with the final version that really reflects our request for feedback. We took the feedback seriously in terms of trying to respond to these concerns, and the final product is now available for everybody to evaluate.